My name is Mark Bourne, Mark Kevin Bourne. You stop recording me, Mick. I was born in England, 8th of December 58. Long time ago, 58 years ago. Migrated to Australia, turned 1 crossing the equator on a 10-pound boat to move out from England to Tasmania. Lived there, joined the Air Force in 78, came to Penang in 1980, and that's where my Penang story started.
Drop it off where we pinched it from.
While I was here in Penang, I was part of the Royal Australian Air Force. The whole idea was the Air Force was winding up here in Penang in around about 1982, 83. I was actually in Amberley in Queensland at an air base, Amberley Air Base, which is an operational base. And a mate of mine got posted to Butterworth, and then I immediately went into the office in Amberley on the airbase, and I changed my posting preferences. Changed it from wherever else it was in Australia at the time, Townsville or wherever, to Butterworth, and within about 2 or 3 months I got a posting out of it. So they moved me to I flew to Butterworth and lived on base for initially the first 6 or 8 months. I basically followed a mate of mine who I lived with in Queensland. So that's how I made it to Butterworth. Every year the Air Force used to put on a Penang boat race over at Butterworth. You know, my memory might be a bit. We were a maintenance squadron, so we had the Iroquois and the Caribou. And this handsome young fellow right here, with the knock knees, that's me. Yeah, it was quite a big affair. A lot of troops, a lot of people, and plus you also had the Australian Army. They used to patrol the base. They were the poor buggers that really worked 7 days a week, where we really only worked 5 days a week. Basically, you had to beat the army to the mess, which is for dinner. Whenever dinner was on, or lunch, you had to beat the army to the mess because they'd turn up in truckloads. And if you didn't get there before the army did, then there was no food left. They never fed them as well in the army as what they did in us guys in the Air Force. So that was always fun. Yeah, so, you know, the army was really the ones that worked 7 days a week, but us guys, we're pretty slack. It was a holiday retreat, really. You know, I was only 21 at the time. I had a girlfriend at the time, and she didn't like it. But then, you know, distance, things break apart. Yeah, no, I met Fung, my wife, in 1982 on her birthday. How I met Fung was you had the Penang Boat Club, and you had this annual event, which was the Penang boat race. Everyone in the boat club and anyone that turned up with a boat, you know, be it a local Penang person or whatever, could race in this Penang boat race. Once again, it was just a big piss up and drive like crazy on the water. That day coincided with the same day that Fung had her birthday, her 19th birthday. And I didn't meet her initially, I met her sister, Fun, and her grandmother. And then when Fung came out from the hotel, because she was inside, she wasn't really much interested in me at all. When we went to leave, well, when they went to leave, because Fung was in a bit of a hurry to leave and go home or whatever, I asked Fung for her address and contact. She wasn't interested at all. She didn't give it to me. So I sort of walked away with my mate. And then just as we were about to hop on our motorbikes, because I had a 1964 Suzuki 120, and it was chopped. It had load handlebars, it had a bloody big extractor, and you put steel wool in the end and it would glow red and throw sparks and everything. Anyway, I went to get on this bike, and I turned back and looked at the grandmother, and the grandmother, Amara, was going, come, 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 come. And I went, me? Yes, 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 come, 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 come. So anyway, I walked back, not thinking that she was talking to me. Thought she was talking to my mate maybe. But no, when I got back there, she'd written down Fung's phone number and address and gave it to me on a piece of paper. Let's go down the road a bit, hide, and we'll follow him home, just to see if this address coincided with, you know, this what was on the piece of paper. We ended up following them home. We managed to get on the right track, went round the corner, and there they were, sitting there on the side of the road, waiting for us. And Grandma's in the back of the car going, and Fung's driving. But Grandma told her to stop, so we ended up following them back to Uncle Tun's house, where we then met the rest of the family, and we played mahjong. Fung and I teamed together, and yeah, that was the first time, and that was we caused them to lose all their money because Fung and I won the mahjong. I was asked not to see Fung anymore. Anyway, down the track, I kept seeing her, and Fung's mum then started to put more and more pressure on Fung not to see me. And her mother had these spies in Penang Road that would report back to Mum, saying that they'd seen your daughter with this Bengali guy, because somehow I look Bengali-ish. No, well, when she started saying, I don't want you to go out with my daughter anymore, which she didn't tell that to me directly, she told it to Fung, and then Fung passed it on to me. But at the same time, but there was another guy that was somewhat scary at the time. He was a inspector with the Penang drug squad. When we got on really well with everyone at the time, he would tell us about, you know, how they'd raid tourists in Penang town and catch them with drugs, and they'd go to jail and all this sort of stuff. And then one day I was at work, and the phone rang, and it was him. I can't remember his name. Gary, I think it was. He was on the phone, and he said, "Hey Mark," he said, "I'm just ringing to let you know that from today onwards you'll never see Fung again." And I said, "What do you mean by that, Gary?" Because, you know, I was getting on all right with him. And he said, "Well, her mother does not want you to see her anymore. And if you persist, then I'll have to do something about it." Well, I felt somewhat surprised, but I was somewhat angry that, you know, that the mother was pushing him to ring me. But I don't think she had much to do with it. It was a case of him saying, "Oh, you know, I could ring Mark up and scare the shit out of him," because he knows about all the stories I was telling him. And he said, "You know, don't see Fung again, because I will set you up." And I went, "Okay, Gary, yeah, love you too," and I hung up. Got thinking over the next hour or so, you know, what happens if he's serious? So I trundled down to the service police, the Air Force police, and I walked in to the office. So I said to the service police, I said, "Look, I've got this guy ringing me up. He's an inspector with the Penang drug squad. He's threatening me, saying that if I don't see Fung anymore, he will set me up. He will raid me, set me up, and I'll be held up on drug charges or whatever." Anyway, what the service police then did was they rang the Australian High Commission in Kuala Lumpur and told them what, you know, about the threat. And they took it very seriously, and they said, well, okay, what we need you to do is to take a written statement. So they took it very seriously. And of course, Fung and I were living in married accommodation at Seaview over in Tanjong Bunga. We had a system that we worked out that if the radio didn't work and the phones didn't work, I would use a broom on the ceiling, bang the ceiling, and my mate upstairs would hear the banging, and he would then run and get the service police or ring them or whatever, because in those days there's no such thing as mobile phones. And of course, a couple of days went by and we heard this noise outside of our apartment. And we thought, oh no, you know. So I got on the walkie-talkie, and within 3 or 4 minutes, the service police, they came round real quick, and what that noise was a burglar was trying to burgle one of the homes, and they actually caught him. But there was no Penang drug squad looking for me. But it was fun at the time. I'll tell you one other thing about the reason why everyone didn't know Fung was married. By Malaysian law, you have to be 21 at that time to get married. No one would marry you. Because she was only 19, I thought, oh, let's find someone to get us married. And the only reason why we got married was because the mother was getting more and more desperate, putting more and more pressure on Fung. Fung initially said to me, no, she doesn't want to get married because all she ever wanted to be was a businesswoman and never wanted to get married. And one day she rang up and she said, oh, you know, I think we need to break up. And I said, why? Is it because your mother? No, I've been seriously thinking about it. And I said, no, it's your mother. And then I managed to talk her around, and next thing you know, she said to me, she said, okay, bugger mum, let's get married. And I went, oh, shit, okay. Now I've got to find someone to marry us. And of course, there was a couple of English sort of churches in Penang. So I rang them. They said, oh, no, we're not going to marry you. She's too young. And then a mate of mine said, oh, why don't you go and speak to the padre or the priest on the base. So I went and saw him, and he goes, oh, that's no problem. He said, in Australia, you only got to be 18 to get married. And this is an Australian airbase. Therefore, it's Australian territory. Therefore, you only got to be 18 to get married. And it will be an Australian wedding, registered in Australia. No problem at all. But then he said, is she a Catholic? And I went, no, she's Buddhist. Are you a Catholic? No, I'm a don't believer. And he goes, well, I can't marry you unless you believe and unless you can get her to become a Catholic. And I said, well, that's not likely to happen. I was pretty disappointed, went back to work, and one of my bosses looked at me and said, oh, what's wrong? I said, oh, I just found out, you know, I can get married, but she has to be a Catholic and all that sort of crap. And he goes, oh, do you know that bloke, they're replacing him, they're getting rid of him, and another one's coming up in a few months' time. And I said, well, who's he? He said, oh, he's Church of England. And I went, oh, that's good. So anyway, I found out the phone number because I was pretty excited. I found out the phone number of the guy in Australia who was coming up, and I rang him up and said, look, here's my predicament. No one will marry me unless she becomes a Catholic. She's 18. Is there any requirement to be a Church of England? He said, no bloody way. He said, you can be any bloody religion as far as I'm concerned. Just wait until I get there. He said, I'll perform the ceremony and you'll be my first overseas wedding. I went, yeah. So we ended up getting married on the 7th of June, 1983. Come on. One of the big concerns of my wife's mother was that when we got married, she would be barefoot pregnant, basically straight away. She was studying at University Science Malaysia. She'd lose her study, become a housewife, blah, blah, blah. But as it turned out, 15 years later, we actually managed to find the time, because my wife was so busy, to have our first child. And here she is, Ying Ming Bourne. This is the result of 15 years of Ming studying still, yes. She's about to head back to Australia after spending 9 years in Beijing, in Shanghai. Oh yeah, her Mandarin's very good.
你好，我是宁宁。
You can do a bit better than that.
That's all. I don't have a last name.
最近刚读完书吗？
对，
然后接下来会有什么打算？
我还没有确定。
你还没有确定。
对。
那所以打算就是毕业后就是这样玩玩吗？
我还不知道。
Yeah, let's find fun. Go and get your mother fun. Me.
Just get my hair plucked. 不要去干我的头发先，最高的。
Follow it.
Oh, come on.
Come on, come and stand with me. How many years?
30, don't know. Too long.
33 years.
Anyway. 不要啦。
Okay, bye. Oh, favourite food would be just about everything. I had curry mee today from the sisters Curry Mee up at Aitam. They've been going since 1946. Last time I had something with them, they were sitting on that little bridge there over the dirty old creek, and that was 1981. Was the last time I ate their curry mee. And these two old girls are still there today. They're in their 80s or 90s. And then just down the road you got Penang's best laksa, and I like, everything from dot mee to char kway teow. Char kway kat is better than char kway teow. Ice kacang, chandoi, you name it. If it doesn't move, I'll eat it. I think it's already happening with the UNESCO, the conservation of Penang. One stage a few years ago, I thought, oh my God, Penang's just being destroyed. It's people are letting everything fall to pieces, so then makes it easier to build a big condo or whatever. But I think those days people realise, since the UNESCO classification that, we've got a lot of value here. So that was a worry initially in my early years when I left. But since then, you only got to walk around the streets, and you got the thing called Malaysia, my second home or whatever, the grey beard or grey hair policy or whatever. Is a lot of foreigners live here now. The times I've been here, I've seen things develop. But then, you only got to walk around some of the streets and drive down some of the streets now. Like, I can get in a car and I can drive down the road and I know exactly where I'm going because nothing's changed. The same tree is on the side of the road where the cars have to sort of bend around it because it's getting bigger and bigger. The roads don't change. Okay, some of them, the one ways have changed. There used to be two ways, now it's one way. So to get from here to there, you've got to go a big loop and all that sort of stuff. Overall, I think Penangites are now very conscious of conservation and the customary Penang, the Hokkien and the Indian and the Malay all coexist. It does get noisy near a mosque, but there's still harmony here. Providing that harmony still continues, Penang will always be a great place.
有時候做這個工行might be 無按呢這時間 to spend with your family 啦。我job 就是講 bring the food to the table for the family 咯。still 攤嚟食啦，未死啦，是講較坎坷啦。maybe 人佢是 stereotype 講，哎呦，你做乜多嘅，家就無讀冊嘅啦。去學學就無讀冊，走去做這個工安尼款咯。這個物件大致本地學掉嘅，因為 technology 越來越進步啊嘛，無講點上嘅嘛。我本是愛讀啦，我都我無讀啦。我知有我 father guide 了我，然後講伊個 basic 了 ，then the following days when 有新嘅物件，我會盡量咩去 adopt 掉啦。嗰個是椰車咯，是椰車嘅色咯。好多日本字去做車嘅，做車本字較大嘛，workshop 除了較大，了嘅隻個了啊，你貴 cost 下面。本身也管啦，所以嘛，